Today, we've got Marcus with us, who's followed along to 30-day lessons for free. He's also a full course member, so it's going to be fun and interesting finding out why he wanted to do it, how he's found the course, why he chose to do the online course, opposed to having a traditional apprenticeship, or he may have had one. So for anybody that's sat on the fence thinking about the course, this is a real life example of somebody that's were in your shoes and now coming out of the other end, which we'll hear about shortly. So, nervous. First thing
Yep.
that I think is really important is, did you have an artistic background? What made you want to become a tattooist in the first place? Did you draw as a kid? What made you think, I want to be an artist in that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, I started off doing art at school and worked up to I went to college and did art. I went on to do a degree in fashion design at uni. And then kind of...
Fashion design as in clothing?
Yeah, so, but that was all drawing as well, so it was quite artistic. And then when I finished that, I got into marketing, and I've been working in marketing for the last about 16 years now. Yeah, I mean, I love marketing. It's a creative environment, but I really did miss drawing. And I had a family who died a few years ago, and it made me, I wanted to draw a picture of him to give to my parents, and I realised that love that I had for drawing, and I really wanted to kind of get back into it. It kind of relit this fire inside me.
Especially when it's to do with you're doing art.
Yeah.
That's obviously got an emotional or personal value. So obviously drawing something for somebody that's passed away.
Yeah.
It adds that attachment to what you're doing, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, and I mean, I guess a lot of people that may agree with this, but it's like almost like a therapy. And that's how I feel when I'm doing tattoos, and it's kind of like a therapy for me, and it's quite enriching, and you kind of spend a lot of time with yourself in your own head, and you kind of feel like you're helping yourself in a way.
Yeah, I think I can relate with that, especially hours once you start.
Yeah.
Whether it's tattooing or drawing, it's like you think, I've been doing it 10-15 minutes, look at clock, fucking 3-4 hours might have passed.
Yeah. You
it's
kind
like
of go
you lose sense of everything, don't you?
Yeah.
So that would obviously your artistic background, but that's drawing on paper. What then made you think, right, I want to do this as an actual job? I want to learn how to tattoo rather than just drawing or designing clothes. Obviously, still art related.
Yeah. I mean, after I did that drawing, I decided to go and do this course in Barcelona with this artist. But half of the course was with a tattoo. It was a tattoo course as well as a drawing course. And I didn't go for the tattooing at the time. I got into it, and I realised how much I really loved it. And since then, I've just been, and this was like quite a few years ago now, and I've just been kind of building up. And I came across your course online, and wanted to do the 30 days. And it was just, since then, I've just been hooked on it, and I love doing it.
So obviously you say you were doing it for a few years before that. So obviously interested in doing tattooing.
Yeah.
Before you sought course, what process did you have a learning? Was it predominantly YouTube? Did you think, right, I need to go down traditional apprenticeship route? What were your process before you ever sought anything to do with Tattoo Method Pro? Yeah,
so basically, it was all online. Looking at YouTube videos and looking at podcasts, listening to podcasts and stuff like that. Before I even discovered your course, I did try to get into a few studios to do to be an apprentice, but having a mortgage, I'm 41 years old now.
Fucking hell, nearly a pensioner. There's no age limit here. You're 41. We've got some people on course 40s, 50s. I think there's somebody that's 60.
Yeah.
So you're never too old to start this. It's not a manual job. You're not umping and dumping bags of plaster or on a building site where it's manual. There's no age limit, and it's not something that you deteriorate as you get older, which is, I think, that's one of the beauties at tattoo industry. You can literally do it until you decide that you've had enough. Not, I physically can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
As long as you're looking after your back and your hands, obviously.
Well, yeah, there is...
Predominantly, there's them two things that are going to go.
I'd say that was the only negative bit about tattooing, is the strain it has on your body.
You've got to make sure that you're in a good posture, which is near on impossible, because you are arched over all day, aren't you?
Yeah.
Even when practicing on mats, you're leant over a table. This is one thing that I always say to people: so when you're tattooing in a shop, use the customer to support yourself.
Yeah.
Rest on them with your elbows, lean on them, fucking sprawl on them if you've got to. It's the longevity of your career. You've got to make sure that you as an artist is comfortable. If the customer's in a bit of an awkward position and they're uncomfortable, so to speak, they're uncomfortable for 5 hours, an average day sitting.
Yeah, I think
you've got to be comfortable, haven't you?
When you're in the zone, you just don't care. You're like, oh, yes, I'm doing it and I'm loving it, and I'll deal with my back afterwards.
So yeah, you'd been jumping about on YouTube. Did you find that you were literally, because this is one of the things that I predominantly think is a really good thing about the course that I've put together. It is in a structured manner.
Yeah,
so prior to finding that. Yeah,
that's the one thing that I noticed was one of the best things, is that how structured it is, how much in detail it is, compared to a lot of the other lessons out there. I felt like you were really kind of holding my hand through the whole process, and you were thinking of stuff which I hadn't even thought of, about learning how to tattoo right from the very basics. It was just very well explained, easy to follow. You could do it at your own pace. It was just really, and I'm with doing marketing for so many years, I decided to reach out to you, didn't I, and see if I could help you with the marketing, and you could possibly help me with the tattooing, and that's how we kind of met each other, wasn't it? But now I've done the course, and I've got right to the final lessons. I've learned so much so quickly. I mean, I've spread out the course over the course of like probably about 2 years now since I first met you, and I've kind of learned as I've been able to fit it around my day job, because I work part-time as well. I went down to 3 days a week instead of 5 days, so I could focus that spare time on this, on developing this. And I think it's really important, like, when you're at a certain age, you've got a mortgage, you might have a family with children. I don't have any kids, but I think when you get to that age and you've still got to pay the bills, and trying to get into a studio and they want you to spend like the whole week there, and you're not usually paid, or you might not get the...
So I think that's a really good point. So obviously before you even ever did the 30 days with me, or before we started, if we rewind a bit, I know that you actually had an apprenticeship in a shop.
Yeah, so I
obviously been maybe 39, 40 at time, or if it were longer before that. You've got a partner, you've got an house to run, you have outgoings. How did you manage to how did you work that into a tattoo apprenticeship? So how did that kind of look for you? Were you there every day?
Yeah, so
evenings?
I started on, I worked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so I'd be in the tattoo studio over the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They'd be closed on a Monday, but it's during their busiest time, so I got to learn a lot about how the business works, how they take bookings, what kind of people they get through the door, what people ask for, some of the answers that the artists give. So I kind of had that, and I'm 40 years old, so I've got my head screwed on. I'm not as young as I look. Can we just cut that bit out?
You don't look 40. So that bit can stay in, Marcus. That's a good point. It looks fucking good for 40-year-old pensioner.
You're not far behind me. So I'd be like working in the shop, and I felt like I am learning, but the artist was so busy they couldn't really help me and show me how to tattoo. I decided to buy myself. I think I got the Bishop wand, the Packer, and I'm a great believer you can buy whatever you can afford, buy, because you're going to be using it. But I decided I really like the Bishop wand, and and then now I use it all the time. I love it. So I found that they didn't have time to teach me. The only days.
How long were you actually there for? How long?
All day.
For a month, 2 months, 3 months.
So about 3 months I was there.
So interestingly, obviously, I can only go from personal experience when I've had apprentices work for me. So you say that you learnt about the running at shop. You saw what sort of customer base they had and how they dealt with customers and things like that. But predominantly, a tattoo apprenticeship, you're wanting to learn how to tattoo. So what did they do with you to actually teach you the tattoo inside?
They did teach me a bit of tattooing, and it was on the mats. But I guess it comes down to how much time that they've got to invest in you. And I know you've got to learn about the hygiene. You've got to learn about how to treat customers, and there's so much other stuff. And I completely agree. You've got to kind of learn that stuff and move on. But in the time I was there, I didn't really do very much. And I didn't mind so much because I was learning other things, but I really wanted to learn how to tattoo. And I completely get that. It takes time to learn how to tattoo, and they've got to fit it in their routine, and then you need to get other work done as well. But it's kind of, I felt like a bit stagnant. And because I was working on those other days, I wasn't there on the days that they did have time to teach me. So, and in the end, I just felt like it was a bit of a loss really towards the end, because I just didn't feel like I was getting any further. So I decided to try and find somewhere else. Having gone to quite a few different studios, they wanted someone, the ones that were available, they wanted someone there all the time, and I just couldn't do it. And it just wasn't feasible for me. So it was almost like, oh, well, you're at a certain age, you've got a mortgage or you've got a family, whatever, you can't get into the industry because this is the only route. But so going online and looking at how I could teach myself, and I came across the 33, the 3 days.
Just quickly, for anybody that is interested in the 30 days, we'll be putting links in description. Like Marcus has said, it's totally free. You don't have to put any bank details in. At the end of the 30 days, you are not going to be a tattoo artist. You're not going to be an amazing tattoo artist. But what it does give you is all the basics. And it's almost like you can dip your toe in water and see if it's an actual good fit for you.
Yeah.
See if you enjoy it, if you enjoy the lessons. And it's basically a taster session of what is to come and whether it's right industry for you to be in.
Yeah, that's one thing I'd definitely say. It's really great to see if you really like it, without having to go out there and buy all the gear. You could buy something quite a cheap setup. You've got your fake skins, and it gives you an idea of how you get on really.
I think the point that you made as well, where obviously you're in quite a good position. And a lot of viewers watching it that want to get into the tattoo industry, average person works Monday to Friday, don't they?
Yeah.
At least you had a couple of days through week where you could also go into a studio. But even that was still restricting you from getting a tattoo apprenticeship, because they do want somebody every day they're open. They want to be there. There'll be so many people like you. When you've got outgoings, you've got an home to run, a partner, you're wanting to go off on weekends.
Yeah,
I agree, and that's the reason why the course was put together in the first place. It almost seems impossible for you to pursue something that you want to do, because there's no way you'd been able to financially just fuck everything off almost without getting paid. So you did. That's obviously before you found course. You were jumping about on YouTube, managed to get an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
That obviously didn't work out. Just rewinding back to your apprenticeship quickly, you said that at some points they did actually sit down and teach you things on the mats. Just out of curiosity, what was the things that they were teaching you on mats? Can you remember?
Yeah, God, that's going back. So it was doing straight lines. You know, there was some very simple designs as well that we did on the mats. But I have to say, the stuff that I learned on the course was nothing like what they took, the level of detail and the time that they spent on that detail that I did in the studio when I was working as an apprentice. I'm not trying to slag off apprenticeships. I think, you know, if you can get the right one, then it's great and you've got the right circumstances. But, you know, when you don't have the time to dedicate, 7 days a week unpaid, then it's very difficult. So, you know, me not wanting to give up, I completely rate Tattoo Method Pro. But yeah, so the stuff that they taught me was kind of how to hold the machine, very simple line work. I learned about a little bit about the hygiene stuff and the health and safety around it, how to set up a station, a little bit about the products and ink.
So
that was it,
touching
really.
on the bits of, obviously it's just so I can compare. Everybody, there's either two choices. They're either going to learn online or they're going to go down traditional route. So it's a really good example. You've been in both positions. So when they were explaining how to do the line work, obviously, even on the free training that I provided in them 30 days, we cover how the angle makes a huge difference. Doing the lines in obviously different directions.
Yeah.
How to curve the lines and how to attempt to follow it with your hand if feasible. If not, taking into consideration that the angle of machine is going to slightly make a difference. How to join a line, obviously invisibly, and how to taper out at skin and taper back in. Are they the sort of things that they covered whilst they were obviously explaining it to you?
No, it was kind of like, you know, this is the machine and here's the skin. Rest your arm here, do this, do that. And then he'd go off and he wouldn't really sit with me. I'm not trying to, you know, slag him off. He's a nice guy. But it was very kind of fragmented and it wasn't very thorough. So yeah, I learned the stuff I learned on a couple of lessons of your course was way more than what I learned in the entire time there. In terms of the technique and how, you know, developing a style and, you know, like, you know, how to create a stencil and how to apply a stencil and how to use a stencil machine and looking at how all of it works together, the process of getting it ready for a client. So it was very fragmented. There wasn't any structure and it was kind of a bit slapdash. So it was like hit and miss what you learn. And I found that it made more sense while I was there. It made more sense when I was going online.
There is a big difference, and I think the reason is it's not been disrespectful to the artists out there. Yeah. There are some dickheads. That's without a doubt majority. They're just after an apprenticeship to do all skivvy jobs, and you're actually quite lucky that you got somebody that actually sat down with you and did things. Because there's so many horror stories that have been told where for 3 months. Or longer, they've literally just been in the shop doing sweeping up, setting up other people's workstations. That's brilliant because you're learning. Yeah. But in my personal opinion, cleaning up the shop is everybody's job within that shop, even the owner. I know when I've had tattoo art apprentices with me, that they have had to clean shop. But I've had my sleeves rolled up and I've been cleaning shop with them. Yeah. It's my shop. But what you touched on is that I think is really important is how many tattoo artists out there that have took on an apprenticeship or an apprentice, but have they sat and actually worked out a full curriculum to teach somebody how to tattoo? Yeah. There's not many. So when it is, all right, I've got a spare half an hour, let me sit you down and go through this with you. Yeah. There's no structure to it. They're just jumping from, right, we'll learn this today, and they'll learn that. But same as in any learning process, if you've got a simple, easy to follow plan, it's almost like you can track your progress and you know what's coming next and what you've already worked on, if that makes sense. Or that were my theory behind creating the course.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's having that continuity and that structure, and you can see what's set out in front of you. You know, if you know, and I'm not saying some artists in some studios, probably some artists will do that. Like they'll have a bit of a structure for their apprentices, and great if they do. But from my experience of doing it, you know, a lot didn't, and a lot of people who I spoke to didn't have a structure like that. It was kind of, you know, a bit kind of hit and miss, so a bit fragmented and not. You get to learn a lot on the job, but it's not very structured like you would kind of if you went to college and did it. I think what you're doing is you're bridging the gap between what you would do if there was a course in college or university, to being in an apprenticeship. You know, it's almost like there's a happy place in the middle, which you're bridging the gap from.
I actually studied how people learn, and the reason why when you go to high school or college or university, there's a curriculum in place, is because their job is obviously to teach somebody. That method of teaching is what gets the best results. There's a reason why every form of education is done in the same way, but the tattoo industry don't treat it like that. Why? It don't make sense, does it? If every single place that is an educational place does things with a curriculum in a particular order, this is what you're going to learn in and why, it makes sense to then apply that to the tattoo industry. Or that's what I've done with course. And I think anybody that takes on an apprentice should want to do it in that way, because that's them giving the apprentice the best of their ability.
Yeah.
But it's an impossible task because they're sat tattooing every day.
Yeah, and they've got to run a business. They've got clients coming in. You know, they've got an order to make, or you know, and I get it. Everyone's got a busy life, and everyone's got, you know, we're all spinning plates, and we've got to keep them all spinning. But in a learning environment, I think if you're going to do it, then do it properly, or put some effort into doing it. Because at the end of the day, as a shop owner, they're going to get the benefit out of teaching their apprentice and wanting them to progress as quickly as possible, so then they can join the team. You know, there is that thing where, you know, well, it takes time, and it does take time.
There's also the like the elephant in the room, so to speak. There's so many tattoo artists out there. I don't know what right word to describe it as. It'd be jealousy or what, fear or whatever word it'd be. They don't want the apprentice to then take over them because it's their shop. They want to be the best in the shop.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they'll hold back information and training and slow the process down because they want to be the authority within their shop still. Yeah. Nobody would want the apprentice to take over the owner.
Yeah.
And I think that's you know yourself, you know my work. Your work is absolutely fucking unreal. We're going to cover it soon. But there's so many people on the course as well in the group, which we'll get onto the Facebook group soon. The work is fucking unreal. And that, for me, is... I don't look at that and think, fucking hell, some of the students are better than me.
Yeah.
But I don't look at that as if to say, oh, well, I hate that person now. They're better than me. And
or feel threatened by them.
Yeah, I think it's a rewarding thing, isn't it?
A true
it's
lead,
like a proud thing.
Yeah, like I think for me, like if you're a shop owner, then you're a leader in a way, and to bring people up and beyond even your level, that's you as a leader. That's what you should be doing, because you're trying to get. You are teaching people, and
there's a saying that I always use. I've used it in a few videos. A proper leader does not have followers. A proper leader creates leaders.
Yeah.
And I think that's the mentality that I have, and what I put into the course. I want everybody on my course to not become my level or beneath me.
Yeah. To succeed and go far.
The goal is that they go well beyond me.
Yeah.
And then their success it's my success because I've helped them achieve that. So obviously that's everything up until basically starting the 30 days when we got in touch with each other. You started following the 30 days, which, as we've said, is completely free.
Yeah.
So if you can remember back to them lessons, obviously it was some time ago. What was the things that you covered, and how did you find? What did you actually learn in them 30 days?
Well, from what I remember, it was very much going back to the drawing board. It was, it was learning about the configuration of needles. It was learning about different materials, how to set up your station, all the materials you need, looking at how needle depth and your posture, how you actually move when you are tattooing, the direction that you tattoo. You're testing my knowledge now, Ben.
I'm gonna quiz you in a minute on a few of them lessons.
How to apply a stencil, how to make a stencil, using Procreate and Photoshop. Obviously, that's moving further into the course now.
The 30 days.
Yeah.
So if anybody's wanting to take the 30 days for free, what can you remember learning within them 30 days?
I think some of the biggest things that I remember that really stuck out for me was the angle that the needle goes in and how far, and the needle depth. That was a really good lesson. I remember seeing you on some of your older videos. I've probably been replaced now, but you were at the whiteboard showing people where needles went in and where ink was deposited, and where it had come out. And that was one of the things that I think that's how I found you, actually. How to tattoo a straight line.
Yeah, the first lesson. Yeah. How to tattoo a straight line.
It's probably the hardest. That is probably why it's most searched, because it is the hardest thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Straight lines are, you think they're really easy, but they're actually really hard.
And I think that's a really important point. There is, in the 30 days, don't be expecting to do any fancy designs, because Marcus will agree, they are simple designs, but that's done purposely.
Yeah.
Because if you've got a design that's just line work and it involves straight lines, if them straight lines are slightly off a little bit or wobbly or shit, it's kind of overlooked, isn't it? Because you're looking at the design as a whole from a distance.
Yeah.
If the lines are slightly off, obviously it matters, but your eyes are not drawn to them the same.
Yeah.
So in the course, the very first lesson is we just do rows of perfectly straight lines. Now, when they're slightly off, you look at it and you think, fucking hell, that was wobbly as hell. You instantly see it, don't it? So it almost like forces improvement.
Yeah.
You've got to learn that when you make a mistake, it is plain and simple, straight in your eyes.
Start with thick lines, because the thin ones, they're really wobbly, and you lose the will to live, and you think, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this. But you just keep going at it, and my work improved so much, in such a short time that I was doing it, because everything is explained to you in the course, which actually I thought was brilliant.
So I know I like to think that I've broke it down into small bite-sized chunks. So obviously, from a student that's obviously followed it, did that come across to you? Do you know what I mean? Was some lessons, were there too much information to digest, or was some lessons not enough? Did you think that some of them were, oh well, this is kind of a pointless lesson, or did each lesson have enough information to make it valid and to learn, but in a progressive manner, if that makes sense?
No, it was all broken down really well, and I think what the beauty about learning online is that you can go back to it. It's not taking up someone's time, and you can do it over and over and over again. I remember messaging you and saying, oh well, could you explain that in a different way? Or having been able to do that as well is really great, because obviously you get that extra feedback, and you're always giving feedback on the comments, aren't you? So it's people are questioning things and getting more information. But I think everything that you did explain was so clear. It was just really broken down really well.
So obviously you fetched some of your mats with you. These are mats, they're all from the course, some are quite early on.
Yeah.
You've done the full course as well as the free 30 days. We'll quickly touch on, and we'll go into this, obviously. I want to show everybody your work, get you to talk through some at mats and the process that you took on doing it. You're shaking your head, but you guys are going to see in a minute, his work is unreal. Oh. But you're just in the process, which we'll cover after we've done mats. But you're just about to literally open your own shop. Yes. You're doing it out at a minute, starting to get your websites and things like that done. So you are a perfect example to have on and do this like podcast, because you've done online research, you've tried a tattoo apprenticeship, you've then found my course, you've done the free 30 days, you've then done the full course, and now you're in them final stages of moving everything that you've learnt onto skin and actually spreading your wings almost and putting everything that you've learnt into practice. And instead of working in somebody else's shop, you've just fucking jumped in and, right, I'm doing it all myself. It's exactly the same as what I did. And I think with standard of your work, in a year's time, you're going to be having customers travel from fucking everywhere.
Well, hopefully.
So this is the mat that we're going to talk about.
So yeah, this was in the 30 days, and it was literally looking at, it started as line work, and that was one of the biggest things to learn in the 30 days. Another is shading and using different needles and different techniques in the shading. So you've got your whip shading, your stipple shading. Then there's the saturation, so there's packing, and trying to achieve a tonal range of different values within the ink. And then there's like the packing, so getting complete saturation in the shapes. So
obviously, I don't think you've labelled them up, have you?
No, sorry, I've been a bit slack like that.
I haven't labelled any of mine either. But just to reiterate, we do drills like this, don't we? Rather than learning the principles in the design. And again, that's just to keep it in its simplest form, so you can just focus on learning the skill rather than doing an actual design itself. But we cover this with the round shader, the magnums, stipple obviously with small lining needle. And I think doing it like this is the best way to learn it. How did you find doing, because they're not actual tattoo designs as such, are they?
No.
It is a drill lesson designed to...
I mean, some people have tattoos a bit like that. They want really simple stuff. But in terms of learning the basics, and it really is mastering the basics before you can attempt doing something more complex, because the complex stuff is just an accumulation of all the basic technique.
Which we cover later on in course, especially when we get into the portraits.
Yeah.
There's... so
that's a whole different ball game, that is.
As somebody that's been through the course though, is there any difference between tattooing these simple shapes to tattooing a portrait?
You do learn more techniques as you go along in the course, but it is essentially it's learning. It's making your brain and your eyes and your hand work in unison together and understanding, how to render a shape.
It's understanding how to break an image down into its simplest form.
Exactly.
You've done some black squares.
Yeah.
There's zero difference if you're tattooing a realistic eye and the pupil is just solid black.
Yeah.
If you've broke that image down mentally.
Yeah.
To, I'm not tattooing a realistic eye anymore. I'm tattooing a round circle that is solid black.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's just understanding how to break it down. So obviously you've fucking done it really good. So they're not in order.
This was quite later on in the course. This is when I first kind of started getting used to doing straight lines.
So just talk us through some of these designs, what you liked, if you can remember what needle you used.
So what I tried to do when I was doing the course was each mat I would dedicate to a theme in the course, a module. As you can see, this one is the Egyptian theme. And the needles I've used on this are 1-liner, 3-liner. I've used a mag and different shading. I can see I've done stipple and whip shading, and I haven't got a preference which one I like the most. I think it depends on the piece of art really. And the kind of how you want it to render and the effect you want. But mostly a real tight 3-liner. And this was the first mat that I did that I really kind of got used to doing tattoos in straight lines. So I'd use the ointment and I'd rest the machine on the ointment. Sorry, on my finger would be rested on the mat, and I'd glide through. So I kind of developed my own technique to get really straight lines, and I was really pleased with this because it really helped me. It built my confidence knowing that I found a way to really achieve a real straight line, and there's nothing worse than a real thin line looking wobbly. But yeah, I was really pleased with this one, and it's kind of made me feel like I that's what I want to do. Like going forward, I want to do fine line and very kind of ornamental, smaller pieces rather than great big tattoos.
I think looking at your stuff as well, obviously we're going to show a few more mats and we'll quickly talk through them. You enjoy using your small needles.
Yeah.
You're really good at the realistic aspect.
Yeah, I like realism and
you get your tonal values bang on, and you understand contrast perfectly. You understand the values, and it's clear to see once you've been doing it sometimes. You are going to be a realistic artist. You're going to prefer using the smaller needle groups, and then the magnums to get that buttery smooth effect. And I think this is just an educated guess. You might end up doing fucking new school, but I think within the next few years you're going to go into micro realism.
Yeah, I do love that. It's really...
And I know some artists that you follow, that's what they do.
Yeah.
And you're following them for a reason. You obviously enjoy looking at the smaller, realistic stuff, which there is, same in any niche, really. There is a massive calling for that sort of stuff. So let's just have a quick look at some of the others. We'll not spend too long on each mat. So this is the one with the stones in, just for picture reference.
Yeah, I really enjoyed doing this because it was the closest thing that kind of, for me, was about drawing and drawing on skin. I love still life and I love kind of classical art, but I also love, kind of hyperrealism. That's the kind of stuff that I wanted to do as an artist before I even got into tattooing.
Obviously, the stone one, it jumps out from an artistic point of view. Why does that look so effective? What have you done to achieve it to look like that?
So this, I used a one needle on this, and it was a stipple effect. I have kind of gone over the stipples slightly with the mag, just to darken some of the shadows.
So that just in the darker areas?
Yeah, just in where the shadow was cast on some of the pebbles, and then in between the pebbles where there was absolute black, I've used a round shader and a very tight small mag configuration, so it really packed in the dark, but obviously a lot of line work around the edges, but generally most of it is stipple one liner, and it's got a very kind of soft finish. I did water the ink down a bit just so the pigment wasn't so in your face, and it was a bit softer. So that's how I feel like I've achieved like a more of a realistic, not photograph, but almost kind of a hyper-realistic tattoo, because I've used that softer method and I've built it up using different needles.
So obviously we covered all stipple, ink course, we cover round shaders, mags. Yeah. What I don't do is say, these are the needles that you need to use for this lesson, do I? I give an example of what I do, and then I always say, look, print it out a few times. An experiment. Yeah. So what I want you to just explain is, obviously we've got the stones, you did that with a stipple.
Yeah.
The one just beneath that, the ball with a cloth.
Yeah, yeah.
We can see that is totally different effect. Why?
Yeah.
So why is that one the end result completely different?
So this one is basically, I've used a lot of grey washes and magnums on that basically, and I've built it up just from a do you call it a swing method?
Brush.
A brush, yeah, brush shading. And it's very soft, and you get a very soft transition from light to dark. You can't really see the mark making as such. It's very, very soft. And when you use grey washes, it just build it up gradually, and you don't see a very dramatic effect straight away. You build it up, and it basically achieves more of a hyper-realistic image because it hasn't got that.
It's a smoother gradient.
Yeah, exactly.
A smoother thing. But honestly, the work that you've done is absolutely unreal. So obviously the back.
Yeah.
So these, it's obviously the different textures, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have a full module covering all different textures. So we've got stones, obviously rock. We've got the fabric. We've got the rope. But the bark one that you've done, the amount of detail that you've put in it
Yeah, I really enjoyed doing this one. It was,
You've obviously done that again with a smaller needle.
yeah.
You're really going to be suited to the micro realism in future. But just quickly talk us through that.
Very similar to the stones. I've used a selection of needles. So I've used one-liners, I've used magnums, I've used grey washes and full saturated ink as well. And it literally is, I've just kind of built it up and got in that detail. Some artists I've seen that they just use one or two needles. I like to kind of mix it up and use different needles to achieve different effects. And I think when you're working on skin as well, which I've done a little bit of, I haven't done very much of, it is a different medium to work on than the fake skins. And I think it is a transition, but not like you've just been getting into it at the end of the course now, where you've gone on to real skin. And it's very similar, but it's different as well, because obviously it is a live organism that you're working on, and the skin takes the ink very differently to what a fake mat would.
That is something you're never going to be able to teach, and it takes a few years to actually get used to, because
everyone's different as well.
Every body part.
Yeah.
So what I found, obviously, over years of tattooing is I can tattoo you, and I could tattoo your inner forearm, and the ink could be going in a particular way. I could then move an inch up and going into cavity of your inner elbow, where the joint is. It's going to go in totally different.
But then that would be different to someone else.
And it would be totally different to everybody else.
And then you've got skin tone to take into consideration. And
so when you're first starting and you're moving from mats to then real people, the technique that you've been hammering for 6 months, a year, is the exact same. The method of tattooing that you use is identical. The only variable factor is obviously you going into somebody's skin, which can be completely different between location and person. And it's something that you never get used to, because you've constantly got to be changing as you tattoo in. But what you do get used to is the fact that you've got to get used to it. So I know we were chatting obviously before this, you're starting to tattoo people now, building up your clientele, opening your own shop. It can be so scary.
Yeah, it
as
is.
As it is for you. But me and Marcus were talking, and I'm sure you won't mind me saying, I've told you to step right back to the beginning, which is what I say in course, but it is so hard, because you look at the ability that you've got. You want to start replicating that
straight away
on people now.
And people are asking you to do these certain designs, and it's like, God, how am I going to approach that? But yeah, it's kind of, you have to start at the basics, get used to the skin, because learning how to tattoo on the skin is so different too. It's a similar process, but it's the way the ink takes.
So the only varying factor is how the ink goes into somebody's skin.
Yeah, it's also your position. I found that when you're doing the mats and you're at a bed where someone's laid out, it's very different. You've got a different posture. There's different strains on your body. It's making sure that you're in a comfortable position to do a straight line. On a table with a mat, it is very easy to do a straight line, but when it's on someone, they could be moving, you could be feeling a bit nervous because they're watching you, or there's so many different other elements to look at when you're tattooing someone for real.
We mentioned this earlier as well. I'm the opposite. So because I'd spent 10 plus years tattooing people, I hate these mats. I fucking despise the mats.
Well, you've been on them quite a lot, haven't you, now?
But I'm that used to tattooing skin. So anybody that's on the course, the methods are obviously the exact same. Everything that you've been learning transitions perfectly to somebody's skin, because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But you've got to get used to then skin. So there's just the one factor that's different that you've got to then overcome. It was the reverse thing for me. I had to try and learn how to do mats. And what I say to everybody that messages that's on the course, we've got a module that explains an exact formula to transition from the mats to skin, and how to bring everything back and keep the design simple until you are used to doing skin. So it's easier to not make mistakes. The smaller tattoos, so obviously you're not panicking thinking, fucking hell, I've got all this to do, I'm going to rub stencil off. What order do I do it in? It does bring it right back to basics again.
I think at the end of the day, you definitely have to start. You have to start on skins, And whether that's in an apprenticeship in a studio or it's online, you have to practice on skins. That is the bread and butter of learning how to tattoo.
What I do say to everybody is, once you get used to skin, a year later, 2 year later, I challenge you to then jump back on a mat, because you would prefer, and you'll be able to get better results once you get used to it on skin.
Yeah.
Because the ink, it does go in different, but once you get used to that difference and learn how to mould yourself to that difference, skin is so much easier than these fucking mats.
Yeah.
Well, we'll quickly go through a few more. So this one was a little bit earlier on in the course, isn't it?
Yeah.
Than the one that we've just been talking through.
The kind of nature side of it, of the module.
So we'll just talk about one design per mat, just to speed things up a little bit. So which one out of this mat were your favourite one to do, and just quickly talk us through it?
I really like is it a daisy?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, again, I used a combination of needles on that. I felt like I got a real good hyper-realistic style of that. So I was quite pleased with that one. And I really like the rose as well. They're quite hard to do. It's getting that softness. I think what I would do if I was to improve that is not have such a black line around everything. It's learning that gentle brush stroke where you're not creating lines, you're just creating shade and shadow. And it's learning how to move your hands, so you're getting the ink in the right places and at the right saturation,
but also in the right direction as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much to consider when you're doing more realistic stuff. It's not just about your hand movement. It is about the direction, as you say, the ink saturation, training your brain, your eyes, and your hand to work together, so you're rendering that as best as possible.
So next sheet is this one with fucking mask and skull.
That's the Halloween module, wasn't it?
Horror,
yeah, that's it. Horror module. I really enjoyed this. Probably one of the ones I enjoyed the most. Again, I love doing the skull with the swing in it. It was the first one that I did that I felt like I'd really been able to nail a realistic shade. And I love skulls. It's like the logo of my business that I'm trying to set up. So I think it's quite traditional in a way, but you can do different stuff with skulls, can't you?
I think even if you look right back at the most traditional tattoos, skulls, they've always been a big part of the tattoo industry, aren't they? And although so many people will be thinking, I'd never have a skull. And years ago, that what case? If you had a skull, it represented death, didn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas now, they're incorporated into that many designs. There's women, just as an example, that'll have a nice feminist-looking skull surrounded by flowers, and it's still, although it's a skull and it represents death, as some people would look at it, just because it's a skull, you can make it represent any sort of feeling, or it's not just a dingy thing. And I think because tattoos have evolved that much, they're not like categorized as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's different ways you can take it.
Yeah.
And, I like quite a lot of the digital stuff, so it's quite geometric. You can render a skull quite geometrically, and it still looks really. It's not so much grungy and traditional looking, but it's got a bit of a modern spin on it.
Let's jump on to the next one. This is obviously later on in course, the lips. Like I've already explained, towards back at course, we take everything that we've learned and transition it into starting to learn how to do portraits. It is, it's not hyper-realism when it comes to the portrait section. It's the basics of doing a portrait, breaking the image down. So we do mouths, we do noses, we break everything down into aspects with the intention that it gets your brain thinking in a certain way, to not look at the image as a whole, to look at it as segments, and tattoo it actually in segments, and then break it down even further. So as we tattoo in the mouth, we look at each aspect individually, don't we, and break it down. But I like to call the portrait section a loose portrait, and I say it often in videos, don't I? I'm not trying to get all the small details in. As such, I know yourself, you probably put more detail in than I do in course, and there's so many of the students that choose to do that. But for those that their artistic ability ain't quite as high, you can still achieve a really nice looking portrait without the smaller details. And what it does is it gets you to that first stage of doing a portrait where you've got the values in the right place and the correct shapes.
Yeah.
And sizes, and then you can, with your artistic ability as that grows, you can obviously improve on that and think, right, I can do lips now to the basic standard. Now I want to try and refine that. Obviously, you've refine it straight away. So I really like the bottom left one where you can see tongue and teeth. And
yeah.
So do you want to talk through that one a little bit?
Yeah. Again, I've used stipple and brush shading on this one. What I learned from doing the lips, because of the gloss on the lips, it was learning how to create the highlights of a wet surface.
The emptiness.
Yeah, and it was that reflection of light that you learn in a lot of kind of more realistic tattoos, that, and doing the mouths in different poses and the noses and the eyes and all of the other elements in the natural part of it. You learn quite a lot doing it like that, because it's breaking it down and it's looking at how to create the shadows on different tattoos and making them all look realistic, because everyone that I felt like I've done, I've learned something new from it. There's always, I think every tattoo you do, you still keep learning.
Oh,
you learn
10 years later, you're still going to be that same attitude. So this one I actually really like. Marcus doesn't even want to show this, Matt. But I really, really like it. Especially the detail that you've got on this cone. And how smooth these bottom ones are, and fucking little texture that you've got in there. You've even gone in and put all little dots individually, rather than just using side of a mag, which is how I do it. We can zoom in. If we look at this bottom tree on right, he's gone in with a small, I'm guessing it was a single liner. And even something that's so small, you can still see the textures in there. I can't wait to see how far you go in such a short time, mate, in the next few years.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing this one. I really enjoyed doing the tree, actually, because it was so me. And it was, I just love...
So are you a tree? Stood still.
I just love. I love doing nature and natural. I love tattooing natural things and things that you could paint or draw. It's more.
So this mat is actually out of the nature and scenery module, isn't it? Where we have a full module that just covers nature and scenery things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like them as well.
So the thing that you made about them, like I've used a single needle, that I think I prefer doing that rather than using a mag, because I find when you use mags, sometimes you kind of get a dot where you don't want a dot because you haven't got that level of control. But then I guess you've done it and you've got used to handling it. Whereas I've found that if I'm doing it, I sometimes will make a mistake with a mag because there's so many needles. But anyway,
that is. So from my point of view, you followed the course. Your tattooing is completely different to mine.
Yeah.
Everybody else on the course, their methods are the methods are the same, it's what I've taught, but the way that they do it is completely different. And that is one of the most important things that I wanted to try and install into the course, because I've watched some other courses, online tattoo courses, and it is, for example, there's one that's all about doing portraits, and this is the needle that you should choose. Well, following my course, you're choosing totally different needles to what I'd use.
I think
that's you as an artist, and
I think there's quite a stigma around. Oh, you've got to develop your own style, and I think you actually develop your style without actually even realizing you're doing it. And I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I haven't developed my own style, but I think you're already doing it. It's just, don't be scared that you have to do this. You're actually already doing it, and sometimes you don't realize you're doing it. And that's what I was like at the beginning.
It's down to your needle choice, People think
Yeah.
a style is tattooing things a particular way so they all follow the same theme, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's your hand movements.
Yeah.
You followed the lessons that I teach, but your way of brush shading is going to be completely different to mine. The method is the same, but your hand movements, the way that you glide your hand back and forth, will be different to how I do it. Same as everybody else. That's your way of tattooing.
Yeah.
So although everybody on the course is following the same lessons, the lessons are done in a particular way where we're not all just mimicking each other. I don't say, for this lesson, this is the needle that you've got to use.
Yeah.
I say, we've learned how to use round shaders, whip shading, brush shading, we've done stipple shading, we've used mags. Now, these are the needles that I'm using. You can do it in stipple. You can do it with a round shader if you
I've
want.
seen on some of the other students on the course, a lot of them have got a hyper realistic style, but if you put them all next to each other, they could all look amazing, but they all look like they've been done by a different person.
Yeah.
Because they've all got that different way of mark making.
Yeah, that's one of the things that in the industry as a whole fascinates me.
Yeah.
You could literally get 10 people to do the exact same tattoo, and you've got 10 totally different.
Yeah,
fucking
they're
outcomes.
all equally amazing, but you can tell they're all done by different people, and that's the style that you develop over time. It's
So moving on to the next, Matt. This is a combination of different modules.
it's like the neo trad and horror, and well, there's a bit of everything in there.
Again, your work is just fucking.
That was quite
It's
early
so
on, that
clean.
one, wasn't it?
Yeah, especially the.
We haven't really
good
done
look
these in
one.
order from beginning to start. We've just kind of gone through.
Just
different
having
ones.
a general look through. So
Yeah.
none of these are in order. Some of the mats that we've already looked at there from the back end at course. So
Yeah, so I mean the ones I really enjoyed doing the kind of the solid colour.
the Buddha bit, bottom centre.
Yeah, so it was creating that harsh gradient between the shadow and the light, and it's almost like a silhouette really. I really liked that because it's quite striking.
See, yeah, so that's interesting because the designs, the way that you tattoo, the smallest details, you use a really small needle choice predominantly. So for you to, out of that mat, think that that's the one that you enjoyed the end result of the most.
Yeah,
It is the easiest one to actually tattoo on that mat, isn't it?
Yeah,
There's no small details. There's some small intricate line work possibly, and then it is just, I'm guessing you'll have probably used either a mag or a round shader to block it all in.
yeah. It was mag in the centre, round shader towards the end, and liner on the edges.
But it is just small circles in a circular motion,
Yeah.
just blocking that colour in. So the technical ability really is quite basic for that design compared to others, but the end result is it looks, because it's high contrast image,
Yeah, yeah,
it just looks effective, doesn't it?
yeah,
And it's things like that when I was mentioning to you earlier, it looks really good as an end result.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
how basic is it to tattoo?
Yeah, really.
They're the ones that you need to be doing on somebody's skin to start with, because until you're used to a person's skin, the
Yeah.
tattoo still looks equally striking. You prefer that one to the more complicated ones.
I mean, yeah, you say it's the simplest, but getting the saturation equal across a blocked out, dark patch is quite difficult to do. But again, it's all coming down to your hand movements and getting
Little tight circles, going in a circular motion and overlapping each other, and then give it a wipe, check it. There should be full saturation straight away. If it's not, obviously on a mat it's different. I explain it towards end at course, and I think I mentioned it in them lessons as well. If you were doing it on a person, as soon as you notice that skin's looking agitated or slightly going red, you'd just leave it. You'd carry on with rest at tattoo, let it calm down and settle down, and then you'd come back to it. Or if it did look overly red, you'd let them fully go away, and when they come back a few weeks later for the touch-ups, you'd then do it. What you don't want to be doing is causing any damage to the skin.
Yeah.
But yeah, the simplest tattoos are not always the easiest to do. But as long as you follow the methods that are in the course, obviously you're going to be doing stuff like this. This next mat is obviously the one predominantly mandalas. The way the size that you've done these and the cleanliness of the line work is really fucking good.
Yeah, mandalas are quite... I found this one quite challenging, getting the lines to join up, getting a solid line and not having to I was conscious about not having to having to go over the lines and getting them a full saturated line. Because obviously doing line work on a skin, there's only so many times you can go over that same line on the skin.
Not only that, but how did you find? Obviously, these mats, they're not the best at retaining a stencil.
No.
The problems that you've got when you start rubbing your fucking stencil away.
Well, that's it.
With this type of design.
Yeah. Because the detail is so close together on these. There is a lot of there's quite a few wobbly lines on this actually, I noticed. But it was the first tattoo I did where it was kind of more about line work, and I was kind of just starting out. But towards the end, that was probably the cleanest one that I did.
The bottom left
the
one.
Simplest one, yeah, that I managed to get. And the circles are so difficult to do because you've got to go in kind of directly down to do a circle rather than an angle. So you've really got to hold your machine differently, and getting a perfect circle without any wobbles is quite challenging to do.
And hand positioning, because you can't just do it all in one go,
Yeah.
90% of the time. You've got to stop and start. So that then goes right back to fucking day 3 or day 4 in course, which is on free course. So you've got to start the line by tapering in. Not so much on mats, it's not as noticeable, but on a person, if you were to just stick your needle in, start, come out, stick your needle in, start, you're going to end up with a really nice line with them little blobby bits where you've just been sticking needle in and out.
Yeah, I mean, if any of the students that have done it like me and they've done one module per mat, when you've done a really good tattoo, you want to make sure they're all really good on there so you haven't got one bad one that kind of is the eyesore. But I wish what I'd done before I'd done this was gone back to those simple drills and practiced my circles. Yeah. I wish I'd have done that because there's a couple like this one, probably not my best work, but I really enjoyed doing it, and I wish I'd gone back to the simple practices to get the crisp.
On a lot of the lives, and when people have been messaging and asking me questions, for anybody that is following the course, whether it's the free one or the full course, what you've just said then is so important.
It is really.
If you're struggling with line work, what I say to everybody is don't get fixated on the problem and spend too much time just focusing on that. Still move and progress through the course, but use them drills from the earlier lessons to improve your weak areas.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling with your line work, just print out the straight line, curve line drills, and before you start tattooing the design, use that as a 10-minute warm-up drill. You're going to be improving them areas. It's going to get your arms and your brain warmed
just
up to then
sitting in the right position,
doing the
not
design.
just getting the movement. Yeah, there's all sorts to take in.
This is from really, really early on in the course. Well, I think these...
We don't need to show that one.
These were all from 30 days. No, they're perfect examples. So yeah, this is predominantly from the 30 days or at the very beginning of the course. So just talks about this. Obviously, it's going back in ability to where you are now, but that is still really clean work for somebody that's not had a machine in their hand for very long. Yeah,
like the candle and the dice, these were the ones that I first did with the stipple and a one-liner, actually, these ones were. So it was my first experience. The one-liners are so difficult to get straight lines, and God, didn't I find that out from doing these. But yeah, So that's a good point. So they're your first experience using stipple method, which again we have a full module on. Yeah.
And obviously the smaller needle. You found it so difficult.
Yeah.
So why is now that's your preferred way of tattooing?
Yeah.
It's strange how it works, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I do advocate. Try all the methods.
Yeah.
And just if you don't like something straight away, stick with it. Make sure you're still trying, because same as Marcus, months down the line, the one that you found most difficult at the beginning might then turn into that's the method that I actually love and that I find is best suited to what I want to achieve, which in this case that's exactly what happened to you.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed doing these. These were like, well, I mean, a lot of the mats, they were like the first time I'd done something from the course, and you know, I progressed. You know, these were a bit later on though. I think the first lot, which I haven't got brought with me, is just simple line work and the circles, but doing those are so important, because I wish I'd gone back to doing a couple of them before I did an actual design on some of these mats, because it would have made a difference, I think.
That is the hardest bit, I feel.
Yeah.
Because people, they look at them drills that you've just been talking about as boring.
Yeah.
But they are the best. They're what bring your work on the most, I think.
Yeah.
And
absolutely, yeah.
that's why they're at the beginning of the course. That's why it's done in that particular way. I'll openly admit they're fucking boring to do, because you've not got the end result, have you? You've not got a nice design to look at once you've finished. But from an improvement standpoint, they're the ones that is going to make the biggest difference.
Yeah. Obviously, you can't do a few drills on a human before you do the tattoo, but...
So, next one.
I don't like this one.
Oh, fucking hell, fire.
It's only because I'm so different now.
You've missed a few bits.
Yeah. I use this one more of as a practice mat, really.
This is just a mismatch mat.
I like doing
predominantly
the hair.
the Japanese theme.
Yeah.
This one.
I love doing the hair. That was the first time I'd done hair. And
what needle did you use for this? Magnum, I can see. With double strokes. 10 gauge.
Yeah.
So I really like this mat. This is actually this one.
Yeah,
it's one of my favourite designs of the entire course.
Oh, really?
I'd actually have that tattooed on me.
Yeah.
If you fancy it, challenge.
Yeah, I'm definitely up for that.
But yeah, I really like this mat. Your fucking shading is so smooth, mate.
Well, it's been
so
taught well.
Which one do you prefer out of these?
Yeah, these two. The Japanese one you like, and then the is it? I can't think of the name of the
Japanese woman.
Yeah.
Samurai woman. That's what it always makes me.
They've got a name. I can't. Geisha.
Geisha. That's it. Geisha woman.
Yeah.
I look at them designs and I always think calmness, like almost like worldly.
Yeah,
like peace. That's what I always think when I look at them. I'd actually have that tattooed on me as well. To be fair, I'd have fucking half at designs. I want to be covered, so I'd have majority of them on. But so you've obviously both of them are done in different methods. Just talk through, like you've just mentioned, you enjoyed doing hair. That what first time you'd experienced doing that. Yeah. What needle did you use? How did you find it? Because you've obviously done a really good job of it. Yeah, it almost looks like you can see fucking individual strands, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I find that the magnums are really good for hair, because you can get that real using a brush stroke with a mag and getting the shine, the band of shine on the hair. That's really easy to achieve. And plus, because you're using a mag, you can get that saturation where the shadows and the roots of the hair are. If I was to do it again, obviously I probably wouldn't put a dark line around it, but then, you know, if from a hyper realistic view, but when it's more of a traditional, you have got that kind of, it looks like a stamp kind of tattoo. And
a lot of them, that style of design, it almost mixes the two styles, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you were tattooing a lifelike portrait, you would never give anything a black edge.
No.
But these, it's done, it combines the two. The hair's really realistic. The way that you've shaded it is a realism way. But yet it still contains them like cartoony look, cartoony feel, line work to the design.
Yeah.
I actually really like them.
Yeah.
And reason being is because of that solid line work and that definite edge, it's going to stand the test of time. Yeah. It'll still look like that in 10 years, 15 years. So I really like that. The way that you've done the hair, would you agree that obviously we learn brush shading and we learn whip shading? But I can tell straight away with how you've done that.
I've done it on the side.
Combined, you've done using side at mag.
Yeah.
Sideways, which is what we teach.
Rather than going that way, I've done it this way. Because obviously you've got all the needles in a line, it creates a more of a definite stroke in the...
As if you were using mag to do a line.
Yeah.
But you've combined the brush and the whip shading almost into one movement.
Yeah.
So as you were getting to that light a bit, you've gradually been coming out at skin and tapering off.
Yeah,
Like
I really love doing hair, like the Leonardo DiCaprio portrait I did. I love doing the hair on that because it was just I don't know. I'm just obviously the technique I'll use. I'm able to get it looking quite realistic. It gives me quite a lot of satisfaction. Knowing.
And then again, the direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting your hand movement.
Yeah.
To follow the direction of the.
It is all about the direction, isn't it? With hair, you've got to get that just right.
Massively. Last one. There's loads more modules in the course, but Mark has only brought a few at Matt's with him for his, to demonstrate. I'm sure he meant to bring them all, but you can't ask for.
We've only got one day to do this, so.
So these are right at the beginning of the course.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing these ones. I do really like more traditional stuff.
the little ink splatter.
Yeah.
I can remember doing that lesson and I enjoyed doing it. It's a bit different.
And I
can't imagine many people asking for that as a tattoo, personally. People will out there, no offence if you've got it. But it was just interesting, I found, to do. And it's almost like there's that crevice in the middle, isn't it? As if it gets...
Yeah, where you've got a shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really look like water. It looks like more of a solid substance. But it's just interesting to... achieve, like if I used a mag on that and I did brush stroke, I'd probably get more of a realistic looking liquid, whereas this is a bit more grainy, and it's a bit
it's
more...
not a smooth surface because of that textured.
Yeah, but it's nice to do different stuff though, to achieve different effects.
I know I can't remember the module or the lessons that it's in, but we do one where I ask everybody to do the same design.
Yeah,
I can't remember what design it was off the top of my head. I'd have to jump back on. But I asked them to do it in stipple with a grey wash, then with a round shader.
Yeah.
With grey wash again, and then with the mag. And the difference, although you're doing the exact same tattoo, the shading's in the same place. The methods are the exact same.
I've found if you push yourself and do stuff like that, then you come across different mark making that you wouldn't have even thought of being able to achieve, but because you've done something a bit out of the box, you've rendered it so differently to how you would have thought it would have turned out. It's worth experimenting, and that's how I think you develop a style, by experimenting and kind of, and that's the beauty about the course. You're there to experiment and develop a style.
So just to wrap things up, what's your overall experience been? Obviously following 30 days and then moving on to the full course. If you could wrap it all up in literally a couple of sentences, what would you have to say about course? God.
Structured, so highly structured. There's the level of detail in the course of learning is just, it's bang on the money. It's so...
This is when you want to blow smoke up my ass. Go on, I am listening. I enjoy it. Go on.
And I think the fact that it's all moduled and all themed, it gives you an opportunity to develop a style, get to know what you really like and what maybe not you don't so like, and then also looking at what it helps you figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are as well. That is a definite thing about the course. And because it's so structured and because it's very there's a method to it, so you're kind of going over and over and over and over. It helps you develop and improve on simple little elements. So you might want to really get your shading really smooth, because you practice it so many times in so many different ways. By the end of it, you are really good at shading. Like, I didn't think I would been able to achieve some of the shading that I've got on some of these.
Would you agree with concept that I use, that the 30 days, I like to class that as the equivalent as somebody learning how to swim?
Yeah. I think
so they can swim at the end of the 30 days.
Yeah, I mean, just doing the free 30 days, the improvement. I wish I had the mat with me. I did at the very beginning, and the mat I did at the very end, because it just shows how much I've improved from day 1 to day 30. But obviously I went and did the full course, so I've been able to develop on that foundation that I'd already built. You've built a foundation in that 30 days.
Example that I like to use is the 30 days gets you to be able to swim.
Yeah.
You can swim then.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But then the 30 days to the end of the full course is what turns you into an Olympic swimmer.
Yeah.
The techniques, you don't learn anything magical. It's just you drill and drill and drill with different designs in right order, different elements as in difficulty, and it progresses right up to portraits, and that's when you bring everything together and improve on everything because you're drilling it that much.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So it's going from, yep, I can swim, to training every day and becoming the best swimmer that you can possibly be. That's the method behind it. So I'm absolutely chuffed with using you as an example. I think that you've gone from obviously having very little use of a machine to you're going to be an absolutely fucking credit at course and an amazing artist.
You've got to
What's
put in
your
the hard
plans
work,
moving forward? Obviously, you've got a shop. Where are you based?
So yeah, I've got a studio based in Beverley, East Yorkshire, in the UK. For those that are not in the UK, so yeah, so I've only just I haven't really told anyone that I'm there yet. I've got a few clients that I'm doing of people I know, so I'm building up a bit of a portfolio, and then once I'm happy with that, I'm gonna then shout to everyone I'm open and I'm there.
Are you having an official opening party?
Well, I was thinking about it, but I just thought my room's so small. I don't think I've been able to fit many people in it.
Don't have to be held at your shop, does it?
Well, yeah, there is that.
I'm just asking for a fucking invite. Are you not getting in?
Yeah.
I'm here.
No, you'll be definitely invited. But maybe we could do something and get a lot of the students involved and do a bit of a launch.
So what I'm going to do is, obviously, thank you very much. It's been brilliant being able to show your work off. If anybody's interested in following Marcus's journey, obviously he's about to open his own shop. Everybody, when they're starting out, needs as much support as possible. So anybody watching, in the description, I'm going to put links to your Facebook and Instagram and any other socials that you've got.
Yeah, appreciate that.
You have to send me them. But it'll be a perfect example if you're thinking about joining 30 days or full course. You as well, at the end of it, could be doing exactly the same as what Marcus is doing, and that's opening your own shop, standing on your own 2 feet, jumping into deep end, so to speak. And I can't wait to see where you get, mate, within the next few years. It's going to be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, exciting. Scary.
And we'll get that tattoo on me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely up for that.
But hopefully that answered a few questions. So many of you watching are going to be at the beginning of the podcast when we're obviously talking about difficulties, getting an apprenticeship, the structure. So hopefully it answered a lot of questions for anybody that had any doubts, or is it right for you? Because there's so many people in the same boat. They can't dedicate losing an income to go work in somebody's shop for no money. There are some artists out there that run apprenticeships that are brilliant, they dedicate time, but also there's so many that can't do that. It's not to slag anybody off in industry. I've been there, I've done it. I was the arsehole turning people away, and it's not because I didn't want to help anybody. It's I didn't want to let them down because I knew that I didn't have enough time to dedicate to them. It's not all bad or necessarily good, is it? It's reality.
Yeah.
People can't do that. There's got to be another way to do it. That's why we put the course together. It's basically having an apprenticeship, looking over somebody's shoulder that you can rewind and re-watch.
Yeah.
Or that was the idea that I had in mind when I first started. What would I teach somebody in what order? And they can just replay it.
And people can contact you, can't they? And they show you the work and you give them feedback. So I bet you get a lot of that, don't you, already? So.
I spend most days all day replying back to people and answering questions, and then trying to fit my work into, obviously, redo all course. Constantly wanting to make it improve. We've just finished refilming all 30 days. I've got rest at course to refilm, business course to come out, marketing course to come out. So there's loads of stuff in pipeline. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been great.
And I'll be over at your studio once it's fully open. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you at next one.
Bye.
Cheers.